Welcome to the BACP Business Education Workshop Series. We have adapted our regular business education workshops at City Hall into these webinars until further notice. On behalf of our Commissioner, Rosa Escarino, I want to inform you that business licenses can be processed online where applicable by visiting chicagobusinessdirect.org. And as I go through this information, please note I will provide all emails and websites in the chat box, so you'll be able to reference them there as well. If you are part of the Business Startup Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn more about the program, please visit chicago.gov/businessworkshops. The City of Chicago has entered Phase 4, Gradually Resume, part of the city's Be Safe Chicago framework. To help guide your business and employees during Phase 4, please visit chicago.gov/reopening. Also, BACP and the City of Chicago's Office of Emergency Management and Communications created ShyBiz Emergency Alerts. You can opt in to receive targeted emergency alerts for the business community. If you are interested, please visit chicago.gov/ShyBizAlerts. Finally, we are hosting our first ever remote expo tomorrow, Thursday, July 16th, beginning at 10 a.m. You can register by visiting shysmallbizexpo.com. At the end of this webinar, we will have a question and answer session, so please use the chat box to ask questions. Please make sure you are sending your questions to all panelists so that we could all see them. And today's webinar will be everything you need to know about business insurance, presented by Sandra Cavato Insurance Agency. And with that, I pass it over to you, Sandra.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining this very exciting webinar. I'm used to speaking in front of the city at the City of Chicago, so this will be an interesting hour together. And I do really look forward to the questions, because that's what makes the webinar and these meetings so useful for people, is because the content that I provide is broad-based content, but then more specific questions just means you're comprehending things on a different level. So I'm looking forward to engaging with you on that. So as Elisa mentioned, my name is Sandra Cavato. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've been an agent in Farmers Insurance since 1997. I've got 3 locations, physical locations, but then I'm also licensed in 6 other states. We serve over 7,000 policies, and I specialize in commercial insurance and financial planning. And with that, we are going to get right into our seminar here, webinar. And basic question is, what is business insurance? We all know we need it when we enter into opening up a business. But business insurance is really just a way to transfer risk from you to the insurance company. So all insurance is transferring risk. So all businesses, especially the small business, needs to make sure that you are insuring against fire, theft, legal liability, auto type of accidents, death and dismemberment of a key employee. When do you need business insurance? So when your thought is in your mind of opening up a business and you create your LLC, really the very first time that you're going to want to buy business insurance is when you enter into a contract with your lease company, a lessor, you're renting space. You are engaging in services for fees, you'll need business insurance. Anytime that you are utilizing what you do in exchange for a fee, is when you're going to need business insurance. Even if you're an online business, you exchange interaction with the consumer or with another business is a trigger to when you're going to need the business insurance. Workers' compensation is also a mandatory law in Illinois. There's huge penalties that we'll talk about later on in the webinar on how much that can be if you are non-compliant requiring to carry workers' compensation. So, and why do you need business insurance? Because a lot of things are very uncertain in our world, and this year of all years, we can relate to things that even myself never would have thought my business could be negatively impacted by coronavirus, and how being unprepared could really be devastating to your business. So the more we can protect ourselves against risk, the more possible for our business to succeed. And we want to win, and we want to beat the odds. We don't want to fail and foreclose and close down our business. And it's our passion, it's our livelihood, it's our life. So we want to do everything we can, and business insurance is the foundational piece of making sure that that's protected. We want to protect your life savings. A lot of us put our blood, sweat, and tears into our businesses and a lot of money, and we don't want to sacrifice that, losing that money. We want to leave it for our family and pass it along. So we definitely want to safeguard, by having insurance, it safeguards and protects the disruption of your business and produces a continuous process within your business. Uncertainty. Again, we all know what uncertainty means. It reduces the risk. Does insurance cover everything? No. There's, in a 50-page contract, you'll probably have 15 pages of what we don't cover. So, but it does reduce the risk of uncertainty, and it transfers the risk away from the business owner and allows the business owner to continue to run their business and lets the experts handle the larger financial situations like insurance claims. Premiums for many types of insurance are tax deductible. That's about as much tax advice as I will give you, but premiums and business is part of the business expense, and it's considered tax deductible. Okay, so in addition to, obviously, we talked about being tax deductible, any other ordinary expenses that are considered part of your business are considered tax deductible. So if you're taking a business trip, if you're looking to buy products and you're taking a business trip, all of those things in that section will be considered necessary expenses, and insurance is one of those items. So although I didn't hit on every product that you can buy, these are the really main products that people consider. So I'm going to just run them down. Business auto, different from your personal auto that you have with Geico or Farmers. Business life insurance, different from your personal life insurance policy. There's partnership life, general liability, professional liability, crime, cyber, property, workers' comp. EPLI stands for Employment Practices Liability Insurance. A commercial umbrella, different from your personal umbrella. Bonds, loss control, liquor liability, health insurance, retirement benefits. All of those things can make your head spin because there's so much data. And when we try to break that down to get it a little bit more understandable for you today. So we're going to start with business auto versus personal auto. A lot of people think that if they have a car and it's registered in their personal name and they run an errand for their business and they deliver something to a client and they have an accident during that time, that it's automatically covered because the vehicle is covered. And so that's not true. One of the exclusions on a personal auto policy is that it typically excludes, unless it's written down and disclosed, that it excludes business relations. So delivery, going from job site to job site is considered a business operation. So if you got in an accident during that situation and you don't have the right insurance, it's very likely that your claim will be denied. So, and why do a lot of people not buy business insurance, business auto insurance? I think the majority, to be honest, I think they lack of information. I think they just assume they pay their premiums, they're the only driver, no other employees are driving their cars. Maybe that's why they don't have it. It is more expensive to have a commercial auto policy versus a personal auto policy, so there's cost involved with it. But I always look at, anytime somebody wants to go cheaper on an insurance policy, I always use the word like fake insurance? Do you want pretend insurance, or do you want everything covered that we talked about? Because I can make you feel better and give you a cheaper policy, but maybe that's not going to be the policy that's going to cover your situation because you didn't insure it 100% properly. So the one key coverage when you're talking about business auto versus the personal auto, because I cannot provide this hired and non-owned auto coverage on a personal auto policy. And hired and non-owned auto liability means that if you hire somebody that does an errand for you, whether they're an employee, 1099, W-2, volunteer, and you ask them to run an errand for you or rent a car for you because you're paying for them to go scope out property or whatever your business is, and they get in an accident with their own car and they're doing work for you, you're now sued in that auto accident, and it can be devastating. It can devastate a business. So if you are engaging in any of that or think that you're going to let somebody use their own vehicle for your benefit, for your purpose, you have to have this coverage. It's a must, must, must. It's called hired and non-owned auto liability. I'm going to give you one example of a time when a client of mine was sued because of the hired and non-owned auto, and it was a very unfortunate situation. It was a real estate office that had an open house, and the employee, who was just the desk clerk, so he was not a realtor, he was a desk clerk, but the person that was running the open house called off sick or was running late, whatever the story was. The owner of the real estate office asked the clerk to take the signs from his, put the signs in his car and drive them to the open house and put the signs out like you see them on the street. Well, during the course of his route from the office to the property, he crosses over a railroad track, avoids a train, like speeds through it, and then collides with another vehicle and head-on collision with them. And no one died, but serious injuries. And we had to pay out under her business auto, hired and non-owned auto, because the insurance policy that the young clerk had just was personal auto insurance, and it excludes business ventures. So even though it wasn't even his business, he was just doing what he was told as an employee, and he agreed to do it, but it didn't cover under his policy. So that's just one example of many that we've had, that some don't get paid because some don't have the right coverage. So talk about different types of business life insurance, and I have a couple of screens on that, but it will also be referred to as key life insurance. And key life just means that you might have, whether it's the owner or a key employee, meaning somebody that's your right hand, or a chef, head chef, or your manager that does everything while you're not there. Anybody that's considered a key role in your business has a value to you, and it's more than their salary. It's hard to put a dollar amount. It's a negative value. What does that senior employee do? Or let's say it's a head chef in a restaurant, and he runs the menu and the whole thing, and then that person just one day doesn't come to work because he had a heart attack. How does your business get impacted by that very tragic non-business owner? So we oftentimes will buy key insurance on those people that are key components to your business. It doesn't always have to be the business owner, but oftentimes is. If we are insuring the business owner, oftentimes you can use your life insurance that you bought for the business as collateral for your loan. So it won't give you a shoe-in approval. I've heard that from many lenders. It's not an automatic guarantee, but it does help your financial application when you have life insurance that could cover the debt that you're trying to apply with a loan. It can be a tool for retaining key employees, because after if that key employee does leave you, you could gift, transfer, pay for that key employee to continue that insurance policy when you don't want it anymore. If they're not your key employee anymore, you may not be looking to continue that policy. Then you don't have any interest in that life policy anymore. So the cash values that are built up in those life policies can also be used as bonuses to those key people. And there's some tax savings and advantages to doing that. It also provides immediate liquidity. And liquidity is just that life policy becomes instant cash if a death occurs, and yet there's bills and maybe there's a spouse and children involved, and you just have to continue, life goes on. This does help bridge the gap between, between the already mourning a loss of a key person and continuing the business, whether it's keeping it alive enough to sell it or continuing the business and hiring another person to replace that lost key employee. There's another policy called stockholder life insurance. Buy-sell agreements, they're usually arranged to how the stock gets sold. If there's a partnership involved or multiple stockholders, how do we put a value on that life, and how does that life insurance pay out to the stockholders in the event of an uncertain death? The partnership life are specifically for people that are entered into an LLC together or a partnership together. They may have uneven values to their business. Maybe somebody got money and others are putting in their time, or they were 50-50 partners from the beginning. Whatever your percent is, it doesn't matter. It's a buy-sell agreement that's created by the attorney, arranges to have the appropriate insurance in place, and then that buy-sell agreement is funded with life insurance that we provide. So we work together with your CPA, with your attorney, and then you need an insurance agent to make sure all of those things function and work together, so that way we can minimize the risk. So general liability insurance is the most commonly referred phrase when people call me for insurance and they don't know what they need. They just say, I need liability insurance. That's what I was told. I need liability insurance, really not understanding what that is, but that's just one small component about it. So liability insurance covers the very basic. It covers somebody gets injured while they're on your premises. Whether they're visiting, they get sick on something that they've eaten there, or they tripped and fell. It covers injuries. It covers contractual, personal advertising injury, liability plus the liability coverage. So there's a whole component inside the general liability category. You have product liability, premises liability, contractual liability, and then your general liability. So those are kind of all fall into that category. The more complex your business is, sometimes the insurance companies don't just throw in all these benefits under one category. They'll either charge you per item. So if, let's say you're producing parts for an aircraft, and these parts are coming in from China, and that product liability, makes the plane run. And so that risk of that plane going down and fatalities happening, that product liability isn't something that they would give you for free. They would charge for it, or you may have to get a different product. You may have to get a different carrier to insure it. But for the most part, most of our standard businesses that we do, retail shops, restaurants, they do come with the policy. Product liability comes with. So your product liability is your items that you may make, store, repackage, relabel, that's product. And premises liability is people that might slip and fall on your property, or even away from your property. If you have a second location, or you might be a restaurant, now you see these restaurants that are opening up in the parking lot. It's not actually on their premises, but it's a rented premises that would fall under that. You definitely want to read your lease. So when you call about insurance and needing insurance, a lot of times somebody on the phone may not be the expert in commercial insurance, and so definitely you want to interview your insurance agent, but we don't also have the lease. And so every lease is different. There are standard leases, but I've seen them anywhere from $1 million liability requirement to sometimes $10 million liability that all can be negotiated with your attorney. And that's why you need to get a good attorney to help negotiate the lease for you in regards to what insurance costs and what they expect of you. Additional insured. When you are asked by a vendor or a landlord to be an additional insured, that is exactly what it means. It means that we are going to add that person or that city of Chicago or that state of Illinois, whoever's asking for it, and add them to your policy, and they will be a secondary insured to you, to the primary insured. And they have all the rights associated to protect them if a claim is brought up against them because of your negligence. So it protects against that other company that may have damage caused to people or property because of that mutual client. So additional insureds can range anywhere from complimentary on some policies to $100 for each additional insured. We also will do for some contractors, like roofing contractors or whatnot. They do additional insureds all of the time, and it would be very expensive to add $100 each additional insured. So a lot of times we can do a blanket additional insured, and however many you need, it's $500 flat fee or whatever that number is. So you definitely want to notify your agent or broker how many additional insureds you expect to have, so that way we can keep that cost and make sure we give you the right price for that. So it protects one entity from another in the event of your negligence. And actually, I'm going to go back to that 1 second, because on the flip side, when you're the customer and you have a job that you want done from somebody else, on the same note, you should be asking that vendor to be additional insured too. So if they're working on your property, they're putting in siding, the roof, or they're laying in tile in your house, you should be asking that contractor for a certificate of insurance and naming you as an additional insured. So that way, if in the event something goes wrong and they damage your property or somebody gets hurt, that you have that extra protection as well. Okay, professional liability. So it's known as errors and omissions. Directors and officers will also have errors and omissions. So it basically protects the business owner if they're giving consulting, professional advice, they're providing a service more than a product. So, like for example, I provide products and services. So I'm required to carry errors and omissions insurance, which is also called professional liability. So if I give you wrong advice or your CPA gives you wrong advice, that there's some recourse for their negligence, because negligence of a professional matter. So not everybody needs professional liability. It just depends on what line of work you're doing. You may need professional and not general. It's oftentimes you buy them as a bundle. You buy both general liability and professional liability, but it just depends. And so those are conversations you would have privately. So it focuses on the failure to perform part of or including a financial loss caused by an error or an omission made by a policyholder. So I'll give you an example of an insurance claim that could happen. Let's say you're my client and you call in and you told me that you wanted to add this new car. You're at the dealership and you want to add a new car in your policy, and I said, great, you're covered. But yet I got distracted and I forgot to add that. I apologize for that. I don't know how to turn that. I forgot to add it. I got distracted and I forgot to add that vehicle on, and that day you got in an accident. And so now Farmers is coming back saying, well, we don't see this policy covered. We don't have any coverage for it. There's no vehicle listed, but I made the mistake. So I took that call. I found coverage and I failed to provide that service. So that's where the insurance company would pay, but it would pay under my policy, not your policy. That's just one, just to get an idea of how can somebody make an error of some sort. It's usually an innocent error. Obviously, no one, I don't think, intentionally wants to hurt somebody, but mistakes happen, right? People get busy and mistakes happen. Crime insurance. So crime insurance is an a la carte item on some policies, and on other product lines that we have, it will be lumped in as part of our package. So if it's lumped in as part of the package, it's built into the price. It protects you against loss of theft from an employee to the business owner. So it's an employer to employee benefit. And it covers theft inside the premises. A lot of times it's robbery of an inside job of an employee, whether current or former. Usually the former employee can get gray and it might have to fall under theft, just theft of the policy. But if it was an employee-related situation and there's money stolen, it would fall under crime insurance. All of these policies have a deductible, so depending on, if they take $20 from the cash register, you're probably not going to file a crime claim. You have a higher deductible than that, but we're talking about actual sophisticated felony. Cyber liability became popular probably about 5 years ago, and it became now part of the farmer's products that it's included in our policy, although many policies still don't have this on the policy. So what it covers is, and let me give you just the example of, remember when was it Home Depot and Target were victims or hackers and got into people's private information, and then I was a shopper at Target, but now my credit card was compromised, and some of my personal data at the pharmacy might have been compromised. Whatever situation is, it was only compromised because I was shopping at Target. So if I'm a victim of cyber theft after that, now my identity got stolen because of that, I can trace back the cause of the claim became because of that Target situation or Home Depot, whoever, the hospital, and they have insurance that would make me whole as the customer. So they're getting to be, they weren't really common before, but the more internet-based everything has become, the more risks that we take from, anybody that could be a threat. And even as sophisticated as these big corporations that you think have firewalls upon firewalls, how are they still getting hacked? So our little computer can get easily hacked. And if you have client data, you definitely want to have cyber liability protection. It's not expensive to have it. So it also covers spreading viruses, computer theft, extortion, any unintentional acts, errors made by an employee while performing their job. I've been hacked by clicking on an email, and it was a virus, and that spread. Luckily, it didn't cause permanent damage, but if the hacker would have gotten into my files, we stopped it in time, that could have been a cyber threat. So we would have to notify our customers that might have been affected by that. Property insurance. So property insurance protects the business if your property is vandalized, if we had a fire, sometimes flood if you buy the right coverage, water claims like hail damaging or lightning hitting your power outage, and then it maybe fries some of your computer equipment. Those would all fall under property insurance. Water backup can be optionally added, but it covers if you're on the first floor of a building and you're worried about the city of Chicago, especially for some reason our water system sometimes gets backed up, heavy rains, and you might have water damaging your drywall or flooring or some of your inventory. If you have the right coverage, then we would pay that benefit to restore you back to normal. Once property coverage is triggered, so once we file a claim and it's approved, then business interruption, if you have that product, if you have that benefit, business interruption then kicks in. So let's say that backup or sewer claim causes that restaurant owner to have to shut down for 5 days, and now they have no revenue coming in because of this water problem. We'll pay for their interrupted business expenses, including profit, when it's called business income or business interruption, business overhead. They're all different words, but they mean the same thing. It's that we could have lost $5,000 a day in revenue, and I was down for 5 days. That's a lot of revenue lost if I don't have the right insurance policy. Okay, and small business workers' comp. Talked about it very early on that it's required by law. A lot of people ask questions about this. Who's considered an employee, who's not. We'll get into, I'm going to refer you to a website that will give you very specific directions, but it basically covers the losses arising from an on-the-job situation, regardless of fault. Somebody lifting a heavy equipment and they hurt their back. I had a claim where a chef in the kitchen, boiling water spilled over him and third-degree burns. No, the business owner was certainly not at fault for that, but it was on the property and it was an employee that got hurt. And according to our Illinois law, we're responsible for that person's safety in our environment. And so that's why there's insurance, and that's why there are laws really to protect those employees to be maintaining in a safe environment. It covers their medical bills, it covers their lost wages. It also covers third-party lawsuits. And I'm going to give you an example about that. So we know that I'm the employee in the situation. I'm the chef in the business, or I work on asbestos. I'll kind of use that example. I'm a painter and I remove asbestos. I come home from work. I'm totally fine, but I take off these infected clothes and I throw them in the wash and my spouse decides to clean them for me. And in that interim, my spouse is now affected by asbestos and has inhaled it and now has upper respiratory problems and all sorts of issues because of this poisonous toxic material. So my spouse doesn't work for my employer, but it was an indirect exposure. And so workers' comp even covers third-party suits, which are a lot of the most expensive parts of it, the third-party suits. You can't really underwrite for that. This is the website that I would refer you to. The Illinois Workers' Compensation Commission, if you go on their website, there's an 800 number or local number that you can call and ask questions. You know, I have a family member, are they covered? Should I have workers' comp? They're part-time, they're seasonal, they're 1099. There's a lot of questions that you'll have to ask, and so sometimes it's a yes and sometimes it's a no. But I'll give you the rundown on 1099 employees. If that 1099 employee that you hire as a temporary employee or seasonal or trying not to pay your taxes on it, whatever your reasoning is for not putting them on your wages and putting them on 1099 is your responsibility. And it's also your responsibility as a business owner to make sure and verify that they are fully insured and covered. Because if they're not and they get hurt while doing a job for you, you will be sued and you will be held responsible for that claim. Even though they signed a contract, even though you said you're not covering them verbally, it doesn't matter according to the law. So be very, very careful. That's the biggest area of confusion is 1099 employees. EPLI, Employment Practices Liability Insurance. It covers the wrongful termination of an employee from the employer. Covers sexual harassment, discrimination. We're an at-will state in Illinois, means you can fire anybody that you want, but it doesn't mean somebody can't accuse you of something, whether it's harassment or discrimination or whatever the reason is. That's why, again, that's why we have laws and there's a labor board and Department of Labor that protects the employees. And this is another way to protect the employer because everything might be on the up and up, but maybe somebody has a different story. And when they file a litigation against the employer, the bills get expensive, even to defend an innocent person. So EPLI covers all of the claims and related expenses associated with defending you in court. Court costs, attorney fees, just legal defense is what it is. And over 40% of EPL claims are against firms with less than 100 employees. So it's a big deal if you don't have it. The higher the risk in your business, the more likely you'll want to have that coverage. So it's really an important coverage if you have any type of employee or you're not involved as much in your day-to-day business. So commercial umbrella is, you know what a personal umbrella is, it's just an additional layer, an excess layer of coverage above and beyond all of your other underlying limits that we just talked about, all of your other liability limits. It's not a property extension. So if I bought $50,000 of property insurance and my claim was $100,000 and I had an umbrella, I can't go get it after the umbrella. It's liability insurance, so it's against those fatalities, those slip and falls. You know, what happened at the nightclub, remember all those people died in the nightclub from just an unfortunate accident that happened. And that $1 million liability just wasn't enough. So large corporations will have 10 million, 20 million of umbrella insurance, depending on that risk, to make sure they protect those tragic situations. Again, it's all of these are intended to reduce your risk, transfer the risk to the business, to the insurance company, and allow you to keep your profits in your pocket instead of spending them on lawyers and filing bankruptcies because you can't get out of these things. So surety bonds are very common for contractors. When you're entering into work, if you're the contractor and you're agreeing to put on, lay cement work for a homeowner or a business owner, and you ask for 50% down for the job. So it's a $10,000 job. I don't know this person from anybody. Maybe I found them on Angie's list, but I still don't know them. I give them my $5,000 down payment. They don't come back and perform the job. If they have a bond, I can call the bond and collect my money back. So it's very important when you're the customer, or if you are the contractor, to offer these services. These are things that provide trust from the consumer to the contractor to make sure that to give them ease that you're not going to default on the contract. It doesn't cover faulty workmanship. So let's say they're not happy with the job that they did, or if they completed the job, the bond is fulfilled. If they skipped town on the job and didn't complete the job but took your money, that's when the bond comes in. So not faulty workmanship. That is, if they have other type of insurance, there's other insurance for that. But your homeowner's insurance would not cover faulty workmanship. So if passed up to the contractor to make sure that you were listed as an additional insured on their policy, and that way you covered all your information. And so those are some examples of how you can use insurance to benefit you when you're the consumer, but also, more importantly, you when you're the business owner. Not an expensive coverage to buy. Loss control is a benefit that is provided from certain insurance companies. Usually, there's no cost to the business owner for allowing loss control to come in. Farmers offers loss control free of charge, but we're basically an extension of your team. So we're going to come in as the insurance company and look for ways to help you have a safe environment for your employees, help you have a safe environment for patrons that come in to visit your shop. We assist with handbooks. We'll help you with slip and fall prevention. We offer continuing education. We are as much available as the employer wants us to be. Some employers don't want insurance companies on their property because they mark the book on everything, but on the same side, don't we all want to be in a safe environment? The more loss control is involved and the safer your business is, the less over time your insurance costs will be, because you're rated on how much premium you take in and how many claims you pay out. And then if you're a profitable business over a series of 3 to 5 years, then you're a healthy operating business that has high probability to be successful moving forward, and your insurance does take a decrease. So versus brand new in business, we're taking the risk on you. A seasoned business, on the flip side, also has some advantages, because a seasoned business that is healthy as far as claims go, there's no claims or there are very little claims. We like those. Those are the perfect customers, right? Those are the ones we want to continue to have a relationship with, and so the rates are positively impacted by that. So I would recommend any help that someone would give me in regards to my business. If it doesn't cost me anything, insurance company, they may come back and say, we noticed that you don't have mats on the floor in the kitchen area. This will help from employees falling, or it'll help with back pain and things like that. We'll offer suggestions, and sometimes it's requirements. If it's a safety issue, we would put a safety requirement on it and make sure that you comply with the loss control recommendations. Liquor liability, there's 2 types of liquor liability. There's host liquor liability, where you don't sell liquor for your business. You're not a bar, you're not a bartender, you don't sell liquor, but you occasionally will have parties. Not this year, because we can't, but occasionally you may have a get-together for your VIP client, or a Christmas party with your staff, and you want to have liquor there. And let's say somebody gets a little too happy at the party and then goes home, leaves, and gets in a car accident. Again, your responsibility. But wait, you don't have liquor insurance because you're not a restaurant and you don't need it. If your policy extends coverage under that general liability, it's a complementary, or you can add it. You can add that coverage to make sure that in those instances, you certainly don't want to be not protected after a very nice party, not to have coverage if somebody drank a little bit too much. So that's the host liquor liability. And then dram shop, which is just regular liquor liability. It's for businesses like bars and restaurants where beverages are sold. The city of Chicago requires you to carry dram shop coverage. The state of Illinois requires you to carry dram shop coverage. Your lease will require you to carry it. So liquor is a big deal, and liquor causes a lot of claims. So you want to make sure you have the right insurance for that. They start at $1 million levels. Actually, you can buy dram shop even at $300,000 levels. but read your lease and read your city requirements because they will mandate a minimum requirement for you on that. I don't recommend anything less than $1 million for brand shop. Okay, and so human resources and benefits. So when you open up a business or you've been in business, you no longer have benefits department. There's no HR. You wear all the hats. You might have to get health insurance if maybe you have a spouse, or maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have health insurance benefits when you own a business. Disability is no longer provided if you're a W-2 employee. Now you're becoming your own self-employed person. Life insurance, long-term care, dental, vision, retirement benefits, all of these things can be added to your business portfolio. And they don't have to be bought at the same time, but they can be built on. And so when you find an agency that can handle all of this growth, and we want to be able to grow with our customers. We don't want to just offer one line of business from them, because you don't have 3 CPAs, one doing your personal, one doing your business. You like to have one person who knows you and knows your business, so that way we can grow with you together and make sure we build a healthy future. Retirement being a big deal. So those are some of the benefits and products that you may want to consider when you venture off on your own. You may have an old IRA or an old 401k that needs to get put into an IRA for you. So those are the things that we can assist you with and kind of build your own new plan in your own company's name. Okay, so I know there's some questions that came in. I'm going to leave my phone numbers up because I get a lot of emails from people that attend the webinar and the seminars that we go to. So I love helping people answer their specific questions. So I'm going to look to the side here and see if I can answer some of these questions. I'm starting a bookkeeping business and will only record clients' financial transactions and prepare financial statements. I will not be providing income tax return prep or giving investment advice. In addition to business owner's coverage, do I need errors and omissions? Yes, you do. So you still need errors and omissions because you are still performing that data entry. And what if that data entry was misreported, or because of your misentry, you're now liable for something? Maybe it's a tax penalty of some sort. And then you'll prepare financial statements, but in the bookkeeping business, you fall into that category of not so much giving advice, but you are touching things that are financial. From there, if you work for a CPA, like if you're the bookkeeper and you're hired by a CPA and you're the 1099 contractor, you might be able to be added to their umbrella. You might be able to be added to the CPA's umbrella of coverage to make sure somebody's protecting you while you're doing your job. Regarding the professional liability coverage in practice, isn't the need for this coverage mitigated via the actual service contract signed? You would think that a nice hardcore contract between two people would be just enough to suffice, whether it's a 1099 agreement or a professional life agreement in place. But still, there are loopholes and still there are errors that get made. And so even though you have a nice tight contract, if you are giving any type of advice, if you have that in writing that you're not responsible for the advice that you give them, that's great. It just doesn't stop somebody from changing it, and you might be liable. So in those instances that I want to rely on a contract that was written to me, unless the attorney can put in his writing that you are not responsible, because then guess what? If you get sued and your attorney told you you're not responsible, then guess whose errors and omission now gets responsible? The attorney. So unless you could pass the risk, I would maintain insurance if I'm in that professional environment. Just too many, and again, remember, the professional liability pays for legal defense. Even if you're innocent, we still have to defend you. So if you don't have the coverage, you still have to defend yourself against that litigation. You don't just get to rip up the court report because you say, no, he signed his contract. You have to go to court. You have to defend yourself. So who's going to defend you? I'm in the bath and body industry with handmade items. Should I be thinking about general liability or product liability to protect against adverse reactions? Yes and yes. So you need general liability if you're in the retail space, but the product liability is for the soaps that you make, for those reactions that customer may get a rash, or there might be something that was in the product that wasn't supposed to be in the product. So your product liability would cover that situation. In general, would be for the premises liability. what other considerations should I look into in regards to digital products? So on that one, specifically to your bed and bath and body, I would just encourage you to email me, and then we can talk offline on that, because there are a lot of conversations that we can have, and I'm happy to give you my advice. When would you consider a commercial umbrella versus increasing their liability coverage? Are there significant cost differences? So the one thing about a commercial umbrella is that it has fewer exclusions. So when you buy general liability and go from 1 million to 2 million, that's great, and then you can buy a million umbrella. But the same exclusions apply on your general liability whether you went from 1 million to 2 million, versus an umbrella having less exclusion, so now I've got more coverage. It might be about the same cost to go from 1 million to 2 million here, and then add an umbrella. Maybe it's a little bit more on the umbrella side, but sometimes it's really not even much more to have an umbrella. I'm buying a broader policy with fewer exclusions, and then that umbrella carries wherever it needs it. So if it's insured properly, then that umbrella can carry over my commercial auto, it can carry over my dram shop, my liquor, my general. So it gets to be a broader product. So I would say stick with the umbrella for that reason. What type of insurance does a nonprofit need? So everybody needs that general liability when you're entering into a nonprofit organization. Nonprofits need directors and officers liability, because usually there's a team of people on the board, and you'll need that D&O coverage, which we didn't talk about specifically, but I can explain that to you. But it's directors and officers, general liability, property insurance if you have space and have computers and whatnot. And sometimes nonprofits host events. They don't have a space, but they host events. So then you need that, whether it's host liquor liability if you're doing any type of event with music or liquor or whatever that might be. So then you customize it based on the specific nonprofit needs. Did I understand that I can roll over my individual IRA into my business? So no, you can roll over your 401k into an IRA, but you can also make your 401k into a business 401k and kind of use your old previous 401k into liquidity for your business. It's a lengthy process, but it can be done, but not individual IRA into business. No, you can 401 to individual is what you would do. For cleaning janitorial services, what insurance will I need for business? Okay, so again, going back to general liability as your basic, you'll need property insurance for your equipment that you might have. How do you get from point A to point B? Do you have a commercial vehicle? You'll need vehicle insurance. Do you have employees working for you? Are those janitorial people 1099? Do they have workers' comp? You'll need workers' comp. And those are the basics. And then from there, you can, some businesses are bigger and larger than others, but those are your basics. I have part-time caregivers who go into homes and care for elderly people. Due to COVID, is there any additional coverage I would need in case a client gives my caregiver COVID or if a caregiver gives it to a client? So COVID is considered a molecular, I forgot the lingo of the insurance companies, but it's excluded. So nothing COVID related on any business owner that we've had has coverage on any company that we have. It's just a flat exclusion. So my understanding of that is, and I know there's laws looking to be changed on that, and business interruption not being covered or transmitting it from one to another. At this time, I have not seen that one case that was brought to us for claims that got paid for anything COVID related. Like microorganisms is kind of the word that are specifically excluded under the standard Illinois policy. In that case, I've had to, as a customer, sign when I go into a facility, sign a waiver. Who knows how good it is if we stand up in court? I don't know, but I am signing a waiver, so I'm agreeing, like the person that had asked before, if you have a contract and you sign, yes, but what if I still want to sue you? What if you didn't have clean equipment and now I think you're negligent? I could still, no one's going to stop me from suing somebody. So sorry on that COVID is, I don't have a coverage available to give you protection for that. When is the best moment to buy an insurance? Before we start the business or as soon as you start it? So I don't like to waste money. If you're not actively engaging in that business with anybody, you don't need to buy insurance to get your LLC. So you want to get your LLC established. That takes time. You got to go to the bank, establish your bank account, get all those in an order. I usually come in 30 days before you're ready to rock and roll and have a first customer is when I come into play, because then we want to build a plan, we want to budget for it, we want to get involved as early as we can. But about a month out is when I work with clients on planning up the right product for them. And a lot of times, because it's such a sensitive financial decision we're making, we're spending all of our money getting the business going. Insurance sometimes feels like it's too much to afford. So some insurance is better than no insurance, but the more you know about business insurance, right? So it's everything you need to know, the more you can at least be prepared. You're willing to take a risk on one thing, but not another. As long as you're educated on what your options are, you can always add coverage later. Just can't add it after a claim, but you can add it later. So you don't have to feel super pressure to buy everything that I just showed you. It's more an understanding of that's on my to-do list sooner than later, or I really need that, or as soon as I get my first big client, I want to add that EPLI coverage, or whatever the reason is. It's the customers that don't know that they didn't have the options to buy something are the ones I feel the worst for. I feel bad for those people because they were not, they asked for general liability and they were given general liability, but then they missed out all these things that they thought they had coverage for. So that would be my answer on that. Is workers' compensation required for nonprofits with employees? Yes. Also, is it required for a sole proprietor? If the sole proprietor or the business owner, whether you're a sole prop, an LLC, if you're the only if you're the only person in the business, you are excluded or waived from workers' comp. So you don't have to buy it on yourself. You can insure workers' comp for yourself, but instead of workers' comp, I would request that you look into a disability policy that would cover you both at work and away from work if you're the business owner versus buying a workers' compensation policy. But yes, non-for-profits are not excluded by meeting. If you have employees, they are required by law to have that. Can we have a hard copy of this presentation? I think it's going to be posted from, Elisa will clarify that when she comes on, but I think that's going to be posted on YouTube.
You are correct. Hi, Sandra. It's Lisa. Yes, so this presentation is being recorded, and it will be made available by the end of this week by going to youtube.com/Chicago BACP.
Okay, and then for cleaning and janitorial service, asking for a friend. For residential and commercial, what insurance will I need for business LLC? So we talked about, actually somebody else was asking questions, so we talked about that. On the commercial cleaning though, we do want to know if you're cleaning like banks and schools. Sometimes some companies won't take cleaning of certain businesses. So if you're doing commercial, we definitely want to have a conversation about who your commercial clients are going to be. There's either an upcharge or we have to find a different carrier if one carrier can't write it for whatever reason. For a bakery, what insurance do you recommend? So you'll always need your general liability. You'll need your workers' compensation if you have your employees, property coverage for all of your equipment. You'll need product liability for sure because you're serving food. And then if you're repackaging and selling it to, let's say you're repackaging and selling it to Mariano's, there's that product liability extension to Mariano's who would want to be an additional insured and so on and so forth. So a lot to go over when there's specific names, but you kind of get the idea that there's that general, the workers' comp, the property coverage are really like your foundational policies that you don't want to leave home without. And then if you can afford to add all those other extras, certainly more insurance is better. The one thing I learned about COVID is that it really woke up a lot of clients, both business and personal clients, because the more afraid, I guess, I wouldn't say the word afraid, but more aware we are of our current situation, the more we rely on insurance to get us out of these bad messes. So people buy more insurance, not less, when they're nervous or worried or concerned. And so now more than ever, we've been selling more insurance because it's an uncertain time. And between COVID and then some of us got affected by riots, and it was just a really rough year that thankfully, if you had the right insurance and you were in business and you suffered from vandalism or anything that was linked to what we've been going on this year, you'll definitely want to be having the right insurance at that point. At what point would you suggest a new business acquire insurance? So that was answered already. I don't know about emailing the presentation. I'm not in charge of that. For a car repair shop, does the owner need to meet workers' comp or just employees? So luckily, a business owner can opt out of workers' comp and you can exclude yourself. So you can exclude, and most of my business owners do exclude themselves under the workers' comp and then just carry it for their employees. And then instead of, when they opt out of their workers' comp, they buy that disability policy if they're concerned about lost wages or taking a trip and breaking a leg or can't work or whatever. So disability is really important to a business owner if you're the one, especially if you're like working on vehicles and you can't work because of an injury or a health situation could lead you to be disabled. So that's more popular than including in the business owner being included on workers' comp. Although you can opt in for workers' comp, you don't have to be excluded. I see farmers insurance in your background. Are you allowed to recommend any insurance company? So the great thing about our company, Farmers, we sell only farmers, but we're a broker. So Farmers is my first company, and I have to give them first right of refusal. So if you are a brand new in business flower shop, which is a product that we offer, I can only offer you a farmer's quote. I can give you advice on anything. So advice is from me. But if a product that you were looking for, if it's offered by farmers and it's accepted by farmers, you get a farmer's quote. But if we can't write it, or it's something that we just don't write, or too many claims, or whatever the situation is, then we own a brokerage company, and then we have CNA, Traveler. We have access to all these other carriers, which is very unique to a farmer's office that allows us the best of both worlds. Better pricing with farmers because we package all of these products that I talked about are typically sold on a package. So you get a better, when something's packaged, you get bundled discounts. You don't have to pay for every little thing that's already built in. So if I can offer you farmers, it would probably be to your advantage because the pricing is much more competitive. We're one of the leading carriers for business insurance. So, but I'm also available to answer questions. There's no agreement and arrangement with the city of Chicago. I'm here to help you get the right business insurance. And if you love your agent, that's wonderful. But now you know the questions that to ask, and if you need help from me, I'm here too. Thanks for the compliment. It's a great presentation. Happy to hear that. If we hire an agency to have employees doing workers' comp. So if you're going through an agency, a temp agency, then that temp agency has the workers' comp for you. So you pay them a higher fee to bring on that temporary employee. And so you don't need to carry the workers' comp on the temp, but you do want to make sure that that's the arrangement that you have that they provide the workers' comp. So because I know a lot of times they're temp to permanent, and then when they become a permanent employee, they might become your responsibility. So you definitely want to read your contract between the temp agency, but most of the temp agencies that I work with I pay the fee, and I don't have to cover them on my payroll. Likely really tough one to answer, but do you have any general guidance on what a small restaurant business with less than 10 employees can expect to pay annually? So if you're a bar, a restaurant, or a cafe, like there are very different price ranges, but let's say a hot dog stand, general liability, $1,500 a year would probably be a good starting point. Let's say a TGI Fridays type of environment where it's a family-owned restaurant, you might be paying upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 a year for insurance. If you serve liquor, if you don't, depending on the number of seating, it really is a hard one to answer because they go by square footage, they go by gross sales, they go by liquor. So outdoor seating, if you do any kind of banquet hall, there's so many questions to answer. Bars start at $12,000. If you're doing bar and food, 50-50, then you could be $12,000 a year. But it's really, I would say, please don't quote me on those numbers because it really does vary on that. So that's the hard one. I would say, get me on the side on that one. Glad you guys enjoyed it. I don't see any other questions. I don't know if Elisa, did you get any on your end that were private?
Yes, I did. Let me just go through a few of them. Someone asked, I worked I work out of my home. I have insurance for my home. Do I still need additional business insurance?
That's a really good question. So the farmer's homeowner's policy, so I'll speak on farmers because I know the product, but I've also seen other companies have this too. If you work from home, depending on the type of business you do from home, like if it's a Mary Kay or if it's a realtor working from home or consultant, some types of home-based businesses can fall under, but you have to add the coverage. It's not free. It's not automatic and it's not free. You can add business pursuits on premises on your homeowner's policy. That's $50 a year versus $350 a year. So to speak, so if you had a regular home-based business, that liability policy might start at $350. Again, depending on the type of service you do. Now, if you do acupuncture from your home, much different, and you cannot get that on your homeowners, but you kind of get the idea. The lighter risk type of businesses can be purchased on a homeowner's policy for a very, very small fee. And then you can even add the LLC. If you have an LLC, you can add that as an additional insured under your homeowner's policy, and then you've got coverage extended from your liability policy on your homeowners.
Great. Next question, could you give me more information on workers' comp for 1099 contractors? Are you saying that if they don't have a workers' comp insurance, then Illinois requires that they be treated as an employee, i.e. payroll deductions and payments?
So yes to your first part. So Illinois does view that 1099 person as your employee during that course of interaction, and then that person got hurt. And it's your fine and it's your responsibility. So Illinois put all of the responsibility to the business owner. So when if you have workers' compensation, you have a 1099 employee that you didn't mark the payroll for, when you get audited from the workers' comp company, we're going to ask for your books and we're going to say, oh, who's Jane Doe that you paid $5,000 on a 1099? Oh, she did an event for me. Okay, let's get Jane Doe's insurance. Oh, she doesn't have insurance. Then we're going to bill you for that $5,000 of payroll that you didn't collect the premium for because she's your responsibility. Now, if Jane Doe had insurance, then we just forgive it. We just put it on the side, we make note of it, you don't pay for her fee. But so many 1099 contractors do not carry workers' comp. So it's very few that are, and if they have it, they're the responsible ones. I would say they're the ones that maybe knew somebody that got in an accident or got in a claim or a situation that they were responsible for. But the fine for not having workers' comp in Illinois, if you are required, is $500 a day, and it goes and the fine can retro back to when you became an official business. So if you became, I was a business owner since 1997, so that could be a fine of $2 million if I didn't carry insurance all these years. Now, somebody's got to report you, right? Because there's no police that report it, but there are lots of employees that don't like their employer when they leave or feel like something wasn't going on right or whatever. So there are whistleblowers within the organization and spot checking, like when the city does your insurance for anything that you need the city involved with, they do verify that you carry a certain insurance. But workers' comp's a big deal, and you cannot file bankruptcy against a workers' comp claim that was brought against you. So it will haunt you forever, and it's very expensive. And that money that the state collects goes into the workers' comp fund, and it pays for injured employees that didn't have the right coverage or whatever. So it goes into a state fund. So it's a serious insurance policy you don't want to not have. If you have employees, if you don't have employees, you're exempt. So that's why I encourage you to go to that website because it answers a lot of questions. Not everybody needs it. If you're a one-man show or working from your home and don't have employees, that's not what the law means. It's the law pertaining to people that you hire on your behalf to represent you, even if it's a 1-hour representation. You hire them, they worked for you, and they got injured. Your responsibility. They're your medical bills now. It's like you just gained a child for that event, and you could have had insurance that would have covered you 100%.
Thank you. Another question came in. 1 second. What's your opinion about services like Legal Shield?
Is that like, I don't know, it's hard because I can't interact. Is that like the Legal Zoom or Legal Shield, like the identity theft company? I'm I'm not familiar. I know that there's
in quotes, and I'm not sure which program they're referencing.
So I know of like LegalZoom, and I know of Identity Shield. So the two words are used interchangeably. So there's LegalZoom. To be honest, I used them once to do one of my LLCs that I had, and it was totally fine. You still have to go do your LLC, file it through the state of Illinois. I still had to do my own thing, but I did use them for a very simple LLC that I formed. Identity Shield, if that's what you're referring to, which is protection against identity theft. LifeLock, I've seen commercials on that. You can get that type of insurance on your homeowner's policy. Farmers offers that. Other than that, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly what you're referring to. So you can email me or call me, and if you want to explain that to me, I'm happy to share you my thoughts.
Next question. The CEO says we have insurance, but she has never shown us the policy. Shouldn't we see the policy to make sure we're covered and what we're covered for?
I would say that's a yes. I don't know what kind of business you're involved in, but the CEO, the more things in writing, the less work you have to do later. So it doesn't cost anything for somebody to issue you a certificate of insurance. So like my errors and omissions, Farmers has 15,000 employees, and every year I get a copy of my errors and omissions. It's a one blanket policy for all 15,000, so we don't get the whole policy, but I get a certificate, and I know I have insurance. So I would encourage a conversation of seeing, at least at a minimum, a certificate of insurance that would give you confidence, and use this presentation as a great platform to ask, hey, I was told I should get something, a certificate of some sort showing my name is somewhere, because you don't want that question to come up afterwards. And we want to, we want to trust everybody, but you just have to protect yourself. And this trying time, these day and age, I just would rather see you have something in your folder that you can refer to, that there's a phone number for an insurance company, if you had to take it upon yourself, and you can ask questions too. So I think, yes, you should have something.
Next question. I am a contractor for a distribution company. I hire subcontractors, drivers, to drive my truck. What insurance should I have to cover them since they are subcontractors? They drive my work and I pay them.
Yep. So they are in the eyes of Illinois as an employee. So how you pay them by contractor, by subcontractor, they're your employee unless they provide that proof of insurance to you. So you don't have to enter into an agreement with somebody if they don't provide you the right insurance. So that subcontractor needs to carry, remember the coverage, hired and non-owned auto, they need that coverage because they're driving your car. You need that coverage too, because what if their coverage wasn't good, or they didn't pay the bill, or they ran out? You still want to have your own. But that employee, that subcontractor that you're hiring, needs to provide you their general liability, their hired and non-owned auto liability that they have, and their workers' comp, if they've bought a policy, excluded themselves, so that way they are off of your books. It might cost them $1,000 to get this coverage, but you can want your $10,000 job. And they can use that insurance on any 1099 subcontracting job that they do. So it's not just a contract between you and that sub. That sub might have 10 GCs that they do work for, 10 different contracts. They only need one insurance policy that covers all of those different vendors that they enter into contracts with. So if they don't, then they become your responsibility. And did you check their driving record? Are they covered properly on their insurance? And then depending on your insurance, like with Farmers, if you have a commercial auto policy with us, we require you to list all the drivers on our policy to have coverage extended. So even if they're a 1099, if they're driving our vehicle and they could kill somebody, I want to run their driving record, and I want to protect you, the business owner. Do you really want them on the road if they've got a DUI? So I'm telling you really why you need a really good insurance agent, because I probably talk to my commercial clients maybe 5 or 6 times a year, each of them, because they have so many situations that they want to run past you and need help with, or a different type of situation. And you need to make sure that you don't enter into anything without somebody else involved with you, or whether it's me or I may pass it to an attorney, depending on how much information I can be of service for you. But one of your 3 people need to be involved in your business whenever decisions are made that can affect your future profits, right? So That's your team. You're the business owner, the attorney, the CPA, and the insurance person are your like foundational consultants. Is how I kind of look at it.
Next question. Apparently, a business/individual can become insurance poor. What are some rules of thumb about how much to budget for insurance?
And I'm super sensitive to that too, because who wouldn't want everything? Oh, yes, of course, I want to be protected for everything. And then you have to scale back. So then when I sit with a customer and yes, they want everything, but the insurance board comes up, they want insurance for it. You can't go into business and then run out of money because you bought insurance for everything that's not. I don't want you to be nervous, Nellie, but I want you to be aware. So then you start your wish list by your most needed policies, ones that are required by law, ones that are required by your lease, ones that are required that you cannot survive without that product. Start with those. You will not be insurance poor. Insurance is a very inexpensive way to pass risk, so you will not become insurance poor by covering the basics. It's the extras that, that get to be expensive, or they can be expensive depending on the type of business you are, but what are you willing to risk? If you're willing to take the risk, then take the risk. If you're not, then we build on it. And that's how every year when we sit down to do our review, we build on features and policies and tweak things. And so you're not tied into the product that you bought forever. You just start with what you can afford and get your most important coverages that you cannot operate your business without.
Okay. Someone asked, how do you find which policies are required by law?
So we know for sure the workers' comp is a state law. If you have employees, it's a state law. The general liability, you enter into a contract with a lease company, it becomes, I don't want to say law, but it's a contractual agreement that you agree to provide insurance for. Anytime you do anything for the city of Chicago, you need to provide insurance. So again, not saying law in that sense, but when I say required by law, I mean required by your obligations as the consumer to whatever vendor that's asking you to do work. So those are what I mean by required.
Would an HR consultant operating from a home need business insurance if they do not have any employees yet?
Okay, so now we're getting to, again, consulting. Providing services, you're giving advice. Your professional liability is what your primary need is. You need your professional liability because you're consulting. Do you ever go to see your clients from outside of your home into their office? You may need general liability if that's the case. But on an HR, home-based HR business, professional liability, and then maybe add on, like for HR consultancy, you'd be able to add on to our homeowners policy. So you would low cost the GL coverage on your homeowners and then add a professional liability to protect you over the type of work you actually do. I think there's one more here. I may have missed it, but backup of sewer was posed as a question on the property insurance slide. Does that imply that it's generally considered optional? Yes, it's definitely optional. And yes, it's separate from flood insurance, but optional, people think that they have insurance and they think they have coverage for everything. And we just went through my presentation on how many items I don't have automatic coverage for. Backup of sewer is not an automatic coverage. So it's an optional coverage that pays out quite frequently in Illinois, especially these last few years with our weather that we've had. None of these, in my opinion, like $100 to add backup of sewer a year. So none of these to me are considered expensive. It's just, you need it. If I don't need it, if you're on the third floor, you don't need backup of sewer. So we'll continue and dissect the plans that are most important to you. But none of those a la carte things get expensive. Commercial auto can get expensive. Liquor liability can get expensive. Depending on like a roofing contractor, can get very expensive just for general liability because you've got a high exposure to damaging things and workmanship and things like that. A workers' comp is very expensive for roofing contractors versus my employees that are sitting behind a desk. I may pay $500 for my insurance, but that roofing contractor may pay $50,000 for his insurance. And a doctor might pay $150,000 for his professional liability. So insurance is proportionate to the risk that is involved in the insurance company to be profitable. So they range. They're really a big range of type of LTD. But these were all really, really good questions. Making sure doing business. Oh wait, making sure doing business from home requires home insurance with a general liability. Yeah, so home insurance does not cover business pursuits typically, it's usually an exclusion. But if you call and you can add a business exposure, if the policy allows it, you can add it. You can add your liability to the business that covers. It's from your liability insurance from your homeowner's policy. So it's like a general liability, but on your homeowner's policy, it's like homeowner's liability into general. But we would extend it from that coverage.
A question came in, what's your opinion about services like AFLAC?
Okay, I sell AFLAC, and I'm not a fan of it, only because it covers, you pay like $30 a month, and I'm not an expert in AFLAC, because that's just not something I care to buy insurance for, just cancer or just an injury. It pays $100 a day for 7 days if I got hurt, playing baseball, or if I get cancer. Very specific policies I stay away from because they only cover one event. So I like to insure things on a broader event, so I'd rather buy disability insurance that would give you coverage in all types of events. Now, is that more expensive than $30 a month? Yes. So if that's your last $30 and you'd rather insure cancer than no insurance, that's then great. It works for me. But I don't like we sell accidental death policies, so I only pay a death claim if you died in an accident or died of an auto accident. Like, very small chance that that's going to pay out. Yes, it's only $8 a month, but it's such a small chance. I'd rather buy life insurance that covers everything. So personally, I don't like policies that are very restrictive in general.
Okay, we have time for a couple more questions, and then we're going to wrap it up. A question came in. So, for example, if I am a nonprofit and have just started, but I do not lease or have employees, am I still required to have general or workers' comp insurance?
So no on the workers' comp, because you just stated you have no employees. And if you're the 100% officer of that nonprofit, then you're exempt in that situation. But if you hire volunteers and things like that, that's where you got to call that department, because you might be responsible for a volunteer working for you. But your general liability is your foundation. So if you're opening a nonprofit and you're doing any type of business, like you're going to host an event or do a seminar, you need general liability. You have to have that. If you're the only person, there's no other officers of the company, then your directors and officers liability may or may not be required. Again, you have to read what you're actually doing, but I've never seen anybody just be one officer of a nonprofit. Usually there's 2 or 3 people on a board that serve as officers of the nonprofit. And so whenever I have a nonprofit, the general liability and the directors and officers liability are typically sold together.
Okay, I believe that wraps it up. Once again, thank you so much, Sandra. If any questions were not answered, or if you think of questions after this webinar, please reference this slide right here. There's all of Sandra's information. Like I said, thank you so much from all the feedback. It was a very good presentation, and I'll have to echo those words. Thank you again. Sandra, any closing remarks?
No, just I usually after these webinars and seminars, I do get a lot of emails, and I love to hear from everybody. Email is the best way, because then I can try to spend the time with you personally. So if you call the office, be prepared to just make an appointment to talk to me. So this way I slot off 30 minutes and you've got my undivided attention. So be patient as we book people, because there's just a lot of people that we want to help. And the one thing I don't like to do is be rushed with somebody on the phone, especially when they're working on their business. So my assistant's name is Joanna. So if you do call and want to schedule time, just ask for her or just have them put me down an appointment. We are limiting office appointments, so if you can, unless it's really a requirement just due to COVID, we're trying to just do conference calls if we can. So that would be my only request. Unless we really have to meet, then we'll make it happen.
All right. Thank you so much. Everyone, have a great rest of your day. Thank you for joining us today. And please look up our upcoming webinars as well. Thank you.